Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Ray. I'm here to talk about spirituality, my path of awakening, to share my story. And today, what I'd like to share with you is how I discovered my ability to self-heal, and to show you how you can do this by showing you the link between healing, energy healing, self-healing, and consciousness, presence. So a couple of days ago, I was talking about my process, and I mentioned that I had a frozen shoulder and I couldn't lift my arm. In fact, I was completely blocked. Neck, both shoulders, but particularly this shoulder. I'm going to wave to you today and show you that my shoulder is no longer blocked. Okay? Now, there was a process here. It was a process that I'm sharing with you now. And the initial reaction I had, and this is interesting as well, how we shift out of reaction, our rational thought process, or just simply our emotional reaction in the moment, our habitual reaction. This is our habit of being, our conditioned mind, our conditioning. Okay, back to the point. My initial reaction was, I did a bit of exercise, I must have forced it, therefore my shoulder is blocked. And as soon as I did that, coming in with that rational, limited understanding or belief around what was happening with my shoulder, I created a story, which then my mind, being the mind, conditioned mind, attached to. Now, if we stay there, we'll look at all the different ways we can heal a frozen shoulder. Maybe physiotherapy, maybe massage, rest, and gradually it should heal. And what I did after that session, because I thought I better walk the talk, practice what I preach, and what I'm sharing with you. So I sat down, and instead of trying to work it out from the mind, which is always a limited experience, okay, I sat in presence and I brought my attention to what was happening in my body. And then what happens is there's a conversation, an exchange that happens in presence, okay? And I stopped thinking about my shoulder, that physical part of my body. I stopped thinking that there was a problem of any kind that I needed to fix. I could feel it, so if I focused on it in that way, yes, it felt like there was something not working in my body. And that's what we tend to do. We think there's something wrong. Okay, first thing we can do is to shift out of that idea of there being something wrong and simply in presence be curious. What is it my body is showing me? Okay, and so what I did was I closed my eyes and I connected with all that pain. It was really painful. And it was, as I said, all the way up my neck into my other shoulder, and it was actually on the left side of my body as well. There was a complete block. It felt like I couldn't move properly. And this is interesting. I felt blocked. And what I have understood over the years, working in this way with consciousness, being curious, observing a lot, and being able to join dots, okay? Understanding the patterns and the connection between the mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our patterns, our cycles, our habit of being, and what that creates physically, okay? So as I connected with it, what I understood was that my body was trying to show me something. It was more than just a simple injury caused through exercise, okay? And I didn't try and work it out. What I did was I responded in presence. So there's that, we're working at a deeper level of consciousness. We're accessing consciousness. And what the body is communicating is there's something here for you to see. There's something here for me to acknowledge, okay, to bring back into a conscious state, to to awaken into consciousness. Okay, so instead of trying to work it out with the rational mind, that limitation, I'm there in presence, in consciousness. And there's a dialogue between the wisdom of the body, what it's trying to show me, and my response. My response is my presence. And in that presence, my ability to let go, okay? To not resist, to not reject. That rejection is, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? What do I need to fix? The resistance is, I don't like this pain. I want it to go away. And when we're healing with consciousness, we're not trying to get rid of. We're not trying to force anything. We're trying to integrate something. And in that way, bring it into awareness. Something that was hidden within the consciousness and the physicality of the body, which is a denser experience of consciousness. And as I sat with it, okay, and I was observing the pain as it traveled, it moved around. It stopped being my body. It was consciousness expressing itself in a certain way, okay? And I joined that dialogue, There was this conversation, okay? And getting the mind out of the way, what I was doing was creating space for the body to release something that had been stored there. For how long? I don't know. I have an idea, okay? Intuitively, I have an idea, but it was coming up for me, not against me, in order that I may recognize something that was ready to come into awareness, to come into consciousness, to awaken, okay? Sorry, we have a little noise from the vineyards around today. Tractors are out and about. I hope it's not too noisy. And what I experienced at that moment, that space of surrender, of curiosity, of engaging consciously in the present moment, letting go of the need to label this as anything, frozen shoulder, pain. It was simply engaging with consciousness. There was a conversation of consciousness and consciousness. Okay? And in that space, something that could be deemed magical, miraculous happened. But it's only because we're not used to engaging in consciousness in that way. We haven't been taught, we've forgotten, been conditioned to think of injury and health in a certain way. Okay? What happened was there was a sudden, very powerful heat in the whole of my body, but particularly around this area. And there was a release happening. Okay, a release of something that had been stored there, held in intention, or through not having an awareness of that experience. Okay, and that experience, and I know this intuitively, having joined the dots, was an emotional and mental distress, pain, stress, essentially. Anything that causes stress, a contraction in the mind and the emotions in the body, is a form of stress, okay? And what I was doing was I was releasing that stress by working with my body, with consciousness, presence. Your presence is powerful. And in that way, the body could release that experience, okay? And very quickly, my shoulder returned to its neutral state, its healthy state. Okay? Now that's rationalizing everything as well, by trying to explain an experience in consciousness. But I'm doing that with the goal of being able to share that experience with you so that you can try this at home. And maybe you're already doing this, And what I find is really interesting, just to finish that, is that as I started to discover how to work with consciousness and healing and energy, and understanding that there are different frequencies of thought, of emotion, and how we hold these in the body, by not allowing these experiences to happen in the moment, or not being able to because of stress or trauma or just lack of awareness and presence. It's part of the human experience, and we're learning how to work with that with more awareness, more consciousness, and to therefore heal in consciousness, to be a healing presence. Okay. What was I going to say now? I was going to say, so I remember what I was going to say, which was very helpful. What I was going to say was, when I started to do this, and I learned to do this intuitively through observing, through curiosity, through need as well, sheer desperation at times. But initially, what I started to do when I was working as an energy healer, sharing what I was learning in a way that I hope to help people heal, was that in the beginning I was trying to force this process. I was present, I was observing, but I was trying to force something with my mind. What comes to mind actually is a little bit like Superman, that focused, I will heal, I will, and it was that will, and it's not necessary. In fact, what you do then is you're trying to control something, you're trying to force something, and the most powerful way you can heal, and the most powerful way you can experience more of who you are in consciousness, is just simply to be present and to surrender into that and to trust. You engage with it in consciousness, and it becomes a conversation, a dialogue in consciousness, and it stops being about the shoulder or a specific idea. Okay, we're getting completely away from the concept and what the mind has called this, what the mind thinks about the body. The body is just a denser frequency or expression of consciousness. So if you engage with whatever it is you're experiencing as it is in its true state, consciousness, it's just that we see it as something else, and we give it an idea, a concept, okay? But in presence, it just becomes another expression of consciousness, and we're engaging in that way, okay? And so you're not forcing anything, you're not trying, with your will to control or really to change anything. It's your presence and your ability to engage with it at the same level, consciousness, And it's your presence rather than your mind trying to understand it that is so powerful. Okay? And it's something to explore. It takes a little while perhaps to get it. I know from personal experience, it takes a while to get into that state of simply letting go. Just letting go. You should see my last post. Just let go. There's a pathway to that as well, to trust that your presence is enough. You are enough. You are consciousness. This is consciousness, okay? And you're engaged in self-healing, energy healing. That's what you're doing. You're engaging with that expression of consciousness. And in the body, what's interesting is that you can engage with it. You understand what it is you're engaging with, because there's a feeling. Your body communicates in feeling, in sensations. Engage with the sensation rather than the idea of what it is you're experiencing. You don't even need to call it pain. Just engage with the sensation and move with it. Observe it. And that way it's becoming consciousness. And there's no identification with I'm separate from my pain. It's all one thing, okay? There's no separation. This is the unity, the 0 point of your experience. The mind creates a separation. And as you engage with whatever it is that you are experiencing, the pain, the discomfort, there's the alchemy actually. There's the transformation back into an energetic state. And it's the mind that creates that, has created it in the past. Okay. So, there you have it. A little bit more insight into the link between consciousness, self-healing, my process, energy healing. I'm going to post a couple of links to the other posts that I talked about, where I first talked about my frozen shoulder, where I've talked about just let go, just love yourself, just be grateful. These are also interesting in the way that we interact and engage with anything in life. Okay, I will leave it there. I hope you found this helpful. Any questions, let me know. I'd be very, very interested in hearing your feedback, your thoughts, your experiences. Please hit like if you thought this was helpful in any way, subscribe. And yes, look forward to seeing you again in the next post.